Hello, my name is Natalie Zacharias from Tending Your Spirit. I'd like to welcome you to episode 8 of the Cosmic Earth Conversations. I'm here with my dear friend Kamala Kay Brown. I'm so excited to be connecting with her today and introducing her to all of you. And so before we start the conversation, Kamala, I would love if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kamala Kay Brown, and I live in England in Box, and I am a crystal sonic therapist, sound healer, and I teach meditation and movement, and I've recently started doing a lot of fluid artwork, and the words kind of find themselves to join that piece of artwork. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's me.
A multi-dimensional creative being.
That's a better way to put it. I
I
like that.
gotcha.
Let's go with that.
Kamala, is there anything on your heart that that you want to share in this moment? I forgot to ask you that when I asked you to introduce yourself.
Um, well, I'm nothing. There's always things on my heart, but I'm going to share these two. I've got rose tea. I've got my rose tea in my.
Yeah. Cheers with my cacao.
And they have like on those tea bags. They have two. They have little sayings, and I'm sure it's going to come out backwards, but that's live in your strength.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the other one is intelligence and intuition are friends.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess they're the closest things to me at the moment with my rose tea. So yeah, in terms of sharing what's on my heart at the moment, it's really what's been happening today.
Hmm.
And I was just talking about before we got here all the things I needed to do today. There's so many things that I need to do today, but what I'm really working on is having a very kind voice towards myself.
Yeah.
And so I had to really really slow down.
Yeah.
And that's like been a full-time job today. Really slowing down. And my mind, I just actually had to realize my mind's going, so if I slow down, then we can speed up. I'm like, no, no, naughty mind. That's slowing down. That's it. We're just slowing down. Things have it, but there's that echo, it gets in, and the
Yeah.
more I slow down within myself and just find your own pace and
Mhm.
just forget the list, just see what happens. You've got a kind of a guide,
Yeah.
and things have happened. Like they've just kind of flowed, and that's been really beautiful. Just to know that when in that, yeah, so the softness, there's so
Yeah.
much strength in it, and there's a flow in it. But that echo, that was the echo of, yeah. So if I slow down, I can speed up. Like no, it makes me laugh. I think I just sit there and laugh a lot with myself, and yeah.
It's so interesting because it's like what I hear when you say that is the like the practice of tuning into like the natural rhythms of the moment versus like forcing this like arbitrary like be producing mindset that we've in modernity have existed in that mindset for a very long time and seeing ourselves as producers and forcing this like this way of existing in the world that ignores the natural rhythm of what's wanting to be had.
Yeah,
You and I both are in the winter months, and so winter is naturally
yeah,
in the
you slow
natural world it's more of slowing down and like being more internal and I don't know, being more mindful of your energy and stuff like that. And whereas your active mind is like, no, do. So it's just interesting because I can relate to what you're saying.
down.
The parts of me that always are fighting with one another. like trying to one on one hand trying to listen to the that deep wisdom that is in alignment with the natural rhythm, and then on the other hand this like arbitrary like voice that's just like do this, do that, produce, produce.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's conditioning, isn't it? That's what I've been
yeah,
particularly looking at with myself, is really going to the root of like this conditioning
yeah,
and allowing it to be there, so noticing it but then softening
yeah.
and actually having compassion around that's like, oh wow, this is like an echo of conditioning, and just really having compassion for that, because it's tough because you've got two currents going on.
Yeah,
That's the thing, is like cross currents, so it's like kind of really wasting a lot of energy,
yeah.
because there's these two currents. But observing that can be the critical voice, produce voice, got to be doing something, you know, just observing that takes a lot of energy,
Hmm.
and and that's what I was saying earlier. From the outside, it's like nothing's going on, but actually there is a lot going on. Like for me, I hold my tension in my shoulder. So
Hmm.
it's this sense of like bracing or getting something done. And I just have to keep watching my shoulder.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, do you have like, you must have egg and spoon race? You get a spoon and you put an egg on it. That's like a
Oh
real,
yeah, 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 yeah.
you
When you're
know?
kids.
And
Yeah.
that's sometimes when you're doing like your inner work
Uh-huh.
throughout your day, it's like
Yeah.
you put an egg on a spoon because you're doing your stuff, but
Hmm.
you're also watching that egg on the spoon.
Hmm.
And then it's when it doesn't become an effort. There isn't this like you're splitting yourself between what you're doing and then the egg and the spoon, when it's actually, there's a real calmness about observing, and then everything in your day flows from that.
Hmm.
So that's what I've been up to today.
It's so curious because I find myself wondering, I'm like, oh, I wonder if this is like, I wonder how many other people are experiencing this. It's almost like a paradox. It's like the old way of being coming into contact with this new way of being, and which feels deeply feminine, and not feminine being like a gender, it actually feminine being like the energy, life energy. Because when you think of like nurturing and being compassionate and like um, slowing down to allow, it makes me think of like feminine energy.
Hmm.
Maybe it doesn't for other people, but for me, that's what comes up. And I wonder, I find myself wondering how many other people are um, sensitive to that and are having a similar experience. I would wager to bet there's a lot more people having that similar experience than
I feel it. It
I think.
must be because we've become more. I think over the last year, because just with lockdowns and just everything that's going on. I mean, I was sensitive before, so I'm an empath, and
Right.
that, and it's like seriously, it's like I'm so sensitive now,
Yeah.
like even more. It's kind of when I go out into the world. We're still in lockdown in England, so I call it, actually, I didn't call it. Two people mentioned, oh, when I go out into zombie apocalypse, because it's kind of like quiet outside. I'm beginning to call, I was like, oh, that's a bit odd. But when I go outside, you can really, everything's quite it's stiller. Everything
Yeah.
feels stiller, and so is more aware of what's going on. And I think that um that sense of slowing down is really there, and that's the beauty of it. It's allowed all this stuff to come up.
Yeah.
That's what it's allowing. It's like, here's some space,
Yeah.
and all of this stuff can come up,
Yeah.
to be processed and observed and transmuted.
Yeah.
And it's so different, isn't it? It's so
Yeah.
different to how I was brought up, to my conditioning, my ancestral stuff. It's all in there. You're unpacking so much. There's a lot of work
Yeah.
that's actually being done without even. Um, it's really nice when you're aware of it. It makes it a
Right.
lot easier.
Yeah.
It makes it a
Yeah.
lot easier. One of the things I did the other day was, I woke up, and so I've been working on this deeply anyway, the old conditioning, and a lot of it's like pre-birth from when my mother was carrying me. So like, how do you haven't even got a story, you haven't got an event, you've just got this way of how you feel.
Yeah.
So I woke up one morning, after asking for this to come up and for me to be able to transmute it, to heal it. And I woke up and I was really panicky, like it's like, oh, here it is again, you know.
Hmm.
And then I thought, okay, what can I do? So I observe it, and then I would need to use my hands, and I said, I felt like I needed to use my hands, so I went to make a clay heart to
Hmm.
remind myself of that. And I did a post on this, and that, so I can light a candle, so I'm aware this is what's happening. Let's pour
Yeah.
lots of love and compassion. And
Yeah.
even when I was making it, I've written that I had the echoes of, it's not perfect, the heart's
Yeah.
not flat, it's not smooth, it's like, so it's like, oh, there you are again, you know.
Hmm.
And then it's like, oh, come and sit in the heart.
Yeah.
So I've been going back to that again and again, like, just, I've got something tangible in my hands to remind me that this is what I'm working on as well.
Hmm.
And, well, this is what I'm shining light on.
Yeah.
And it's like, I just need to be kind to myself. It's like,
Yeah.
really just give yourself a break. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, and like, and that's been really beautiful. And it don't look like much is happening.
To the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah, because when we were talking about it earlier, I mentioned, like, I said, actually, even the words I said, I'm procrastinating,
Mm.
and I wasn't, but
Yeah.
I still use that word to describe it.
Right. It's that old programming of your, are you producing or are you not producing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so that actually, that just opened my eyes up again to the words that I use.
Yeah. Yeah, because they're so powerful.
Yeah, and you can use different words with different people. For some people, if you explain what's happening, so it will be, so you're procrastinating. No, no, this is deep stuff. I'm working on this. So yeah, so it all depends. It's nice when you're in company of people who are kind of doing the inner work as well, and
Yeah.
it feels like, yeah, everyone's going through a lot of stuff in their own ways, and it's nice to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm. You're
I love that. To give some context for those who are watching this video, how Kamala and I know each other, considering she's all the way over there in England. Kamala's younger brother, Harnik, was a really good friend of mine. And I met him when I moved out to California. Actually, I met him before I moved out to California. Um, I went to go visit a friend, a mutual friend of ours, and that's when I was introduced to him. And then when I ended up moving out to California, our friendship just flourished a lot. And Harnack has since passed. Um, it'll be 2 years this
2 years
March.
in March, yeah.
Yeah. And Harnack had cancer, and he passed away from cancer. Um, and it was really hard. He was such a bright light in this world, and I feel like one of the gifts that he left behind was connecting me and Kamala together, and our um, I always considered Harnack as a brother to me, and so I found a sister. He's like, here, you can have my sister as I go into this next iteration of existence, and so our friendship really was birthed from our grief for losing Harnack. Um, and so grateful for that too. I feel like it's been so supportive in helping both of us process our grief around losing such a bright light.
Yeah.
And many times I've supported Kamala in her healing. She has supported me in my healing, and oftentimes we'll both have this experience of like feeling Harnick being just so happy that we're working together. And also, I feel like a part of me, because he's such a jokester, he's like, "Why didn't you do this when I was around?"
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Now you know this shit. Like, it's just like, I can hear him, yeah.
Yeah,
He's so funny. It's the humor. Like,
yeah,
it's like such a big laugh, and
yeah,
humor's so healing. You
yeah,
know, that's that was one of his, like, in many, many gifts, but that was
yeah,
a really big gift of just
yeah,
making me, oh my God, we laugh over
Yeah.
the stupidest of things. And it's like having that connection with someone that can just make you laugh without even saying anything,
Mhm.
with just a look. And
Mm.
like we were so lucky to like share the same parents, so like we really get that, it's like we really get that when, because there's 11 years between us. So I used to look after him when he was younger, and
Right.
like yeah. So but we really, yeah, there's like a really beautiful soul connection, yeah. And just being able to connect with you and has been such a gift, that's
Likewise.
yeah. He had so many like stories, and yeah, he's such a bright light.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's been an interesting 2 years just
Mhm.
processing, yeah, grief. And it doesn't, um it's not that it kind of goes away. It's just different opportunities come up
Yeah.
to be able to process it. And
Yeah.
then I think I just like noticed like, oh, that doesn't affect me as much. And then there's other times when you feel like you've been hit
Yeah.
by a bus, and suddenly it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's grief is such an interesting process, but it is part of life,
Yeah.
and it's a completion of a cycle,
Yeah.
which it is a completion of a cycle, and in that sense it's a celebration. But at
Yeah.
the same time, it's like it hurts,
Of
you know
course.
so it's like when some people just, and I'm gonna, like, we're talking about this both, and I feel like there can be spiritual bypassing with grief as well.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it is a completion of a cycle, totally. And it's like it's a new it's an end, it's a new beginning. It's like,
Yeah.
I understand that, but in the meantime it hurts. I've had a number of people have gone, like, really tried to kind of spiritually bypass it, um for me, giving me that advice. And it's like, it's okay, but I kind of just, I need to cry, and just like, that's what I need to do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, you've got to watch out for that. We do live in a paradox,
Yeah.
in a
So
in a
interesting. I feel like in the Western, particularly in the Western world,
Mm.
grief is well, like the expression of very intense emotions
Mm.
isn't quite um not celebrated. That's not quite the right way to say it. But it's
Embraced,
like it's not, what would you say?
embraced.
Yeah, it's not embraced. It's, you put it up in the corner and like put it away over there. And I feel like that is why there's so much pain and trauma and all those things in the Western world, like addictions and so many really unhealthy, toxic ways of dealing with suffering. It's
Yeah, I
because
mean,
of that. How we project
grief
our
is the
suffering onto
lungs, isn't it?
others.
Grief is in the lungs.
Oh, it's in the lungs. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
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 it's
that's what's with all the COVID stuff. I don't know if there's a connection, but it's the whole point. There's been a lot of focus on lungs. There's a lot of grief
yeah,
that has been coming up during that time,
yeah.
and
There's a lot of people that continue to escape from the grief, or like, and I get it too. Like it
God.
for many years I was terrified of actually feeling all the intense emotions that I was holding back. And then it just got to the point where I'm like, I can't live like this. I can't live with cutting off my arms and legs. Like I
Mm,
actually have to face it, as painful as it may be, and find people that I trust to help hold space so I don't completely lose it.
mm,
And find, in allowing others to support me and holding space for me, finding the ways that I can hold space for myself, you know, and in that modeling, because it's not something that was modeled in from my parents, you know. I mean, thinking my father was incredibly uncomfortable um, whenever I'd have any emotional expression,
mm.
um, in all the except for like joy, like that was fine. But any of the emotions that bring up any sense of discomfort, I mean, he couldn't hold that. And then I would trigger my mom because my emotions would be so strong that it would oftentimes trigger her wounds. And
Yeah.
so it's not like I grew up that experience of having parents who can hold that the intensity of that experience. I had to find that. I had to find people who could. And then in that, learning how to do that for myself. And I think that is something that so many people are needing. I mean, especially, I mean, if we didn't have the year that we had, they would still need it. But especially because we've had the year that we just
Oh,
had,
yeah.
everything has been, as you were saying before, brought up to the surface. But so many people aren't actually dealing with it, which is, I'm aware of that and like watching that,
Yeah.
you know?
It's like it's an opportunity, whether or not I think it's coming up whether people see it as an opportunity and as to grow or not. It's coming up, and then it can come up really in a not great way. When I look back when I was younger and things were coming up and I had no idea, and you're kind of losing it, and
Yeah,
it's like whoa, that's what's happening to loads of adults.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah,
kind of like. That's intense, you know.
yeah,
And in
yeah.
that sense, I've kind of um been in my own space. It's required. It's I think this like last year's required us to go deeper within,
Hmm.
because actually it's a bit of a, mind my French, it's a shit storm out there sometimes, you know, and it
Yeah.
feels like this, you know, the the kind of
Hmm.
kindest place is actually to be with yourself and limit, for me anyway, interactions, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got to be with people that I really feel um, are on the same wavelength. They know they're doing their own work. They know how to hold their own space,
Yeah.
and so
Boundary.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like yeah, so it's really really important.
Yeah.
And just playing, like, kind of dancing with that, like you want to still have a lot of be there for people, but a lot has shifted.
Yeah.
Lots of people's relationships have shifted.
Yeah.
The number of people I've spoken to, and they're like, I'm so happy I don't have to go out to these things I don't want to go out to, and I don't have to talk to these people. It's like, yeah, well, that was always there. You know, it's like it was always there. It was always a choice. But now it's like it's kind of brought change itself,
Hmm.
and I guess we'll just kind of see how things keep unfolding. But my eye is very much on what's going on in my own inner world.
Hmm.
That's really important,
Yeah.
because that's where everything else can come from, where I can hold space
Yeah.
because I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, going on with me.
It's interesting because it's, I feel like for me, where I'm at is this like, shuffling is probably the best word. Like I'll make contact with like what's going on, and then I'll go see where that like, um for example, I'll tune into like what's in the mainstream media, for example, and like see how that's landing within me, and like try to have like that shuffling of like going back and forth of like, oh, interesting, where's my discernment, like how does this land for me, like doing the exploration of like both seeing what's happening inwards and outwards, and seeing what where um almost like where is the spotlight going on,
Okay.
meaning like when I get triggered, when I
Yeah.
get triggered, for me that's like information of like, oh, there's a wound there that needs to be processed, so I can't do that without having the outside experience
Yeah.
of getting triggered, if that makes sense.
No, totally, totally. It's like which light is lighting up on you.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you need that. And if not, it happens internally. So,
Yeah.
you know, with the people you're around anyway.
Manifesting.
But that's what happens. It's like, yeah, it comes up. It
Yeah.
comes regardless, you'll find it.
Yeah.
Just like this whole the triggering and the projection with other people that are close to you and around you, it's
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can't escape growing, especially this last year.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, actually, don't actively look for the mainstream media. Just-
No, I know
I
you don't.
am like, actually, don't do that on purpose. But like, looking. What I mean by that is that looking at things that are a different viewpoint than what I am seeing. Like I need to like see what are the other viewpoints as much as I can in order to like help me study more of what's happening.
Yeah. I guess it's
Because
yeah,
I'm always watching, like I'm having my own experience, but I'm also curious of like, well, what else is happening here for everyone else? Because I know so many people aren't aware to even look into themselves. So like I feel like there's a sense of responsibility that I have of like noticing what's happening that could potentially be affecting more people than they're aware of.
yeah. It is it's like what I find is like when something will come up or
Mm.
I'm triggered or I'm not feeling good within myself and I don't know why. I'm like,
Yeah,
is it my stuff?
yeah,
And then I'll talk to my partner and say, what's going on in the world? Because I do that.
yeah,
I'm like, what's going on? He'll tell me, go, oh, that's why then. I have an
yeah,
idea like, oh, I've just been
oh,
affected by this massive like wave because
yeah,
it's like it's kind of we are so affected by everything else.
absolutely,
We're like living in the same pond, so we're gonna feel that ripple. It's
yeah,
sometimes I'll be sitting, you know, on my lily pad, and then I'll be like, whoa, what happened there? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, what's going on? Then I'm like, and then I'll look across the pond and go, oh, that's why, you know, and that's like,
massive frog just jumped into the water.
yeah, it's like, oh, I get it now. All
Yeah,
right, then. So
yeah,
that's fine. And then I'm like, okay, it's all right. It's like this is stuff that's going on outside as well,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and then it just ripples, um, yeah, through because it's everything. I think that's it's the noticing that everything's really, really connected.
yeah,
Like we already know that, but like
yeah,
become even deeper.
yeah,
You know, that
yeah,
sense of really knowing that, especially with all the because it is like with the what's going on in the news and different views and different events that happen. To me, it's felt like everything's like it's like I'll put my head out the window and it's like it's moving so fast.
yeah,
Blur of it. It's changing so much. There's so much happening, so much being said, so much. It's like wow,
yeah,
and that's like okay. So I need to go back and be still again.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's and that's not like I'm not trying to like hide from the world. It's like
No,
that is
seriously.
what I feel like I need to do, and it's the kindest thing to do. And that
And
feels
also, like you're a very sensitive being, and I mean that in a way that like you have a heightened state of sense of being able to sense into um, what is occurring on like a very quantum level or energetic level, and because of that, and you're one of many. I mean, I'm like that. I know so many people who are incredibly sensitive beings, and to be a human who is sensitive to the nuances of what occurs in the collective environment. It does. It's. I mean, a lot of people are having a lot of difficulty with that, and then there are people who have the tools and the practices that they can call upon that, like what you're speaking of, um, that are able, like that's how they're able to take care of themselves in being a sensitive human living at this time on the earth.
hmm,
And a lot of people are awakening and remembering. I mean, something that
it's
I'm really.
really cool.
We were talking off camera before, like, should we say this? Should we not say this? So like, let's say it. So something that Kamala and I are working out together is like really fun. I mean, we think it's fun, funny, um, like simple guide for those who are going through their awakening process, because both of us have gone through that experience, and um it would have been great to have something to help. And I know there are definitely a lot of guides out there that people have created, and we're excited to create something to join in all of those resources that are already available for people, and with our humor very much entwined in it.
Yeah,
um, but it's everyone's awakening process is different, and of course, like it would be lovely to have like a very detailed guide that would tell you every step of the way how to do things. Uh, However, unfortunately, life is not that way. there's
No.
there's no highly detailed guide that it can tell you every single step. Um, but there are a lot of people who have had experiences that are open to sharing those experiences with people in the hopes that they're supportive. I mean, in many ways, this series is part of the intention is to support people in their process of awakening by exposing you to different people who have different perspectives and hold different medicine that's very unique to them that play in the big role of what we're all experiencing as a human family. And so,
It's really
yeah,
valuable. It is really valuable to have all those different perspectives and know that it doesn't need to look in one particular way.
yeah,
It's like when you I think sometimes like at the beginning you can just feel like um when you just become aware of the wider nature of reality and your connection to everything, it can very much be we have a lot of conditioning of what that then should be
mhm,
like for us. Like it's
yeah,
like suddenly you've got like a school jacket that you all have wear the same jacket. It's like it's nothing like that. Everyone rocks their jacket in their own way,
yeah.
and that's
They
and like
have their own colors.
yeah, 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 and everyone just gets and when that's okay, that
Yeah.
becomes. I think that's when it just you just get more comfortable with it, and there's different phases that people go through.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know. I wish I had a little handbook. I had to like find things, and it's always been a gradual process, but
Yeah,
it would have been really nice to kind of to have something, and for it to be funny. You
yeah,
know, I just
yeah,
love things that just make me laugh, and
yeah.
I think it makes me laugh. We might be the only two people who will be laughing at that's okay. It's like we made two people up. Just that is fun. It's
Yeah,
like, and it's kind of crazy doing something that is just like so much fun,
yeah,
isn't it? It's just like, yeah, it's like this is so much fun. It brings so much joy,
yeah,
and it's the simplicity of it. I think I think Harnick would have like really loved it.
yeah,
Yeah, he had
totally.
yeah, sense of ridiculousness about everything.
You
The
sure did.
humor. So that's what I love. So I
And
just
some
yeah.
great videos and pictures of Harnick being absolutely ridiculous that some I have shared, some I have not shared. Just because I think he might have been mad at me if I did.
Yeah, but he was such a joker, and I think it's the like it is. It's just humor is amazing. Just laughing. I mean, I did. God, when was that? Oh gosh, that was in 2010. So
Mm,
it's like 11 years ago. I did I went to this did some teacher training for laughter yoga. This is like 11 years ago. So I thought that's like you kind of like gather loads of strings, loads of
yeah,
threads, and then you just weave them. And after a while, you don't even realize you're weaving them. So that was
yeah,
like when I just found a strand, like
yeah,
after yoga. Yeah. So I did that, and just the whole. It's just amazing with laughter because we still have the same chemical reaction,
yeah,
it's true laughter or not. Isn't that amazing?
yeah,
So if you just go
yeah,
ha ha ha, you're having that chemical
yeah,
reaction of like reducing your cortisol,
uh-huh,
endorphins going up. It's just like, wow, that's
yeah,
I just like I'm like a kid, like wow. I just love that. It's just amazing. So yeah. So there's all these things, tools which are also just natural, you
yeah.
know. Yeah, really
It's
natural.
interesting because I feel like laughter and joy, for people who have like experienced such intensity and such um, sadness, like I'll say for myself, like my early 20s, my late teens, those are a really hard time of my life. No one around me would have known that I was suffering so much because I covered it all with a smile. But at that point, I was hiding behind my smile. I was even hiding from myself behind
Mhm.
that smile, and like
Yeah.
being the good girl and all those different like labels that I put upon myself. But it was through, life as it continued to proceed, and then um, when I laugh now, like I'm a person who laughs and smiles a lot. Um, and for me, I'm not bypassing like I once used to. I
Yeah.
very much like I feel what joy has the ability to help you with is finding balance with all the suffering and all the grief and all the anger and all those things. And in many ways it feels like um like a life preserver that I'm tied to, that allows for me to go into the depths of my own, like my shadow parts of myself that I don't like, grief, suffering, all those things. I can swim a lot deeper now, and then be able to like have that tether to joy and laughter, um and like not taking life so seriously, so that I could, like go back and forth, like go get some air and then go back in. And I think that's something that, because it's oftentimes people are like, oh, that the topic of spiritual bypassing, I know it's something that you and I have talked about so many different times, and it's so nuanced. You have the I mean, gosh, it literally, you can go on for hours talking about the nuances of spiritual bypassing and spiritual communities, and people who are more dogmatic about their practices, people who are more flexible and open, and there's just so much. And I feel oftentimes like if you're someone who's presenting as joyful or happy, people who are more dogmatic will be like, well, you're not serious. And then I think of like people like the Dalai Lama, who's like just pure joy. At least from my experience, anytime I've ever seen anything of Dalai Lama, like he just feels like joy to me.
Yeah.
And for someone who's like, well, you're just not taking things so seriously, it's like, have you seen this enlightened being? Like he's so joyful. There's
Yep.
something to that. Again, not allowing it for you to be a way to escape. Um, you know, the
It is.
suffering, but
You don't. It's. I think it's really interesting how we see it, and it's because of there's like the paradox, like
right.
everything's connected, it's all one, it's all from like one source, but also that you're also this in this human form that
Yeah.
is separate. Yeah, so like you can go from, and my classic one, sorry, there's a little fly, no, it's gone, okay. The classic fly in my ointment, yeah. So like what you can have is my classic one, when I did it to myself, I think the biggest one where I've spiritually bypassed a massive event that's happening in my own life
Yeah.
was when I was also simultaneously having a big awakening. Yeah.
Mm,
So that's like, it was just like, now I look back and go, you must have looked nuts. You know? It's so interesting because I was getting, I'd found out personal stuff, but I found out my husband was having an affair, and but I also had that shock. It was like perfect life, everything crack and rip.
yeah.
That shock actually really opened me up to so much, to the point that I was celebrating, because I was like, wow, about in
Yeah.
terms of awakening.
Yeah.
Parallel, I've got this situation going on,
Yeah.
right? So I'm like, kind of like, everything's fine. Like,
Yeah.
everything's totally okay. And not necessarily talking about what happened and what he did, but I think he kind of
Right.
took it like, it's okay. It's like, and then
I
you'd
know.
like have the,
Imagining
then
everyone
you've got
around
the
you be like,
swing,
is she okay?
and then you'd have the swing of, this ain't okay. And then
Yeah.
you'd have to like, and that's what I find, like the awakening, you can have this kind of like pendulum effect, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
so you can have this sense of, it's like when people have certain experiences,
Yeah.
and there's a real opening and perspective, and then
Yeah.
kind of come back into the like really into the human self. So it's like
Yeah.
this pendulum the other way. So I feel like in that time I probably spiritually bypassed my own situation, not knowingly, because I was going through a big awakening. Like, there's so many different phases, but I think that was a really big one, because something
Yeah.
shifted then. My
Yeah.
reality as I knew it cracked, and that allowed so much in. So I think that's what I did to myself, and then I had to
Mhm.
then obviously untie all of that. Like, it's not okay. you know I wasn't talking about that. I've got something else going on at the same time. So it's quite interesting, but yeah, looking back, it's beautiful when you look back.
Yeah.
beautiful. Everything seems so much clearer. When was that? That was like, yeah, 11 years ago. Yeah, hence the laughter yoga. I think I needed to laugh. So yeah, so that's like a big, yeah, that can happen in so many situations where
Yeah.
we can just um brush things away, you know,
Yeah.
and but it all comes back, there's this kind of, it is difficult. It's just difficult being human. I find it is for me. I just like one of my first memories is I just remember being little and like really little and looking out, like getting out of bed, which was quite difficult. So I think I just probably just started sleeping
Yeah.
in a bed and then
Yeah.
going to the window, and it was like there's moonlight and the window sill's really high.
Yeah.
So I remember being small and like, what is it? I just like, I don't think I had the words, but I had a feeling, what's this? Like,
Mhm.
what is this? It
Mhm.
didn't make sense. Didn't make
Mhm.
sense to be in that human body. And now when I come back, I'm like, oh, okay, like it's beginning to all make sense on a deep level
Yeah.
of how things are now tying up and I'm understanding more and more. And
Mhm.
yeah, and I can understand why I am so sensitive,
Mhm.
and it's okay now. It's like it's a gift,
Yeah.
you know. It's like in, I call it like the vanilla 9 to 5 world, you know. It's
Yeah.
like it's not. It's like you're too sensitive.
Yeah.
You're too sensitive. You're whatever, and it's like it's taken time, but it's been a beautiful shift of, yeah. It's like everything's good. Like this is who I am, and I can actually honor my gifts, and yeah, especially with the sound. It's so simple. I think that's what I found recently, just kind of stepping away from the blur of everything in the world moving so fast and
Yeah.
people having opinions and counter opinions and all this stuff. But for me, the sound is like it just cuts through everything. And one of the gifts, I was thinking about that earlier today, is like with Harnik, um, with the bowls. He had lots of Tibetan bowls, but he had like a crystal bowl, and I didn't even realize that he had a. I had a dream back in um, 2012 about I'd own an emerald bowl. I didn't even know
Mhm.
they were a thing. I didn't even know like they were a thing, so I had to like do a search, and anyway, Harnik turns up with an emerald bowl about 5 years later, 4 years later, and now I have that emerald bowl,
Yeah.
and yeah, and since then they've grown to like 11 bowls, but the gift of that and the sensitivity I found with myself with them,
Mhm.
it's been effortless, which is really beautiful. It's not like I've had to learn something. It's like that was already there,
Yeah.
and that feels really yeah, it feels a very peaceful, it feels like a very peaceful place,
Mhm.
and it's both. So it's like with the paradox of of these two elements of being everything but also being this human body. um
Yeah.
the sound, for me, it combines them both but without words, and that's like really nice. Not to have to go into there,
Yeah.
and then it plays, and I find like I'm they're beings in their own right, so the
Mhm.
crystal bowls, but they're also um they're instruments, but then I'm also an instrument playing it, and that feels really it just feels, it's kind of like a weight off as well, because
Yeah.
it's like it's good because they're being played and they know what they want, because I hear them before they want to, when I'm playing I hear
Yeah.
which one wants to be played next, so
Yeah.
it's kind of really lovely, like to know which one is, they're around me, that's why I'm doing that, I'm looking around. By the way.
I know, like, I kind of feel like, can you pick one up if it's easy and not gonna break them? Because
Yeah, no, no, it's good. I've got my teapot. So this is leopard light with mother of platinum, and that's a third eye bowl actually. And
When it's a third eye bowl, what does that mean?
sorry.
When you say it's a third eye bowl, for people who may not know what that means.
So it's an A note, and it's supposed to that's supposed to resonate with your third eye in terms of clearing and balancing. So that's like one way of coming into the bowls,
Yeah,
like looking at their notes. So there's different notes and there's different frequencies.
yeah.
So there's different notes which are different energy centers. There's different frequencies, and then the gemstones themselves might
Mhm.
correspond to a different place. Now, I like with me, it's not like it doesn't work in that way anymore. It doesn't
Yeah,
work in like I'm going to play these certain notes along
right.
each of the energy centers because it doesn't. They're not that kind of. They're like people. People aren't just one type of person. They're like
Yeah.
so many parts to them,
Like
and
how I call it multidimensional.
they're multidimensional and they're alchemical. So the alchemy is the gem in it, and
Hmm.
then the different materials. So they have metals as well. So
Hmm.
like platinum, it's the note, and
Hmm.
it's the interplay between them. It's whoever's playing them. It's
Yeah.
whoever's listening. There's
Yeah.
like so much to it, and it's
The
like and
land,
yeah, and the land, the day that you're playing it on,
yeah.
the start.
The
So
energy,
there's
the
so
cosmic.
much going on.
Uh,
So I kind of feel like they when I do when I do like kind of try to define them, because each one like crystal tones, they're made for healing. Crystal tones are the people who make these. They're made for healing purposes. They have like a description. Some of them actually don't. The Andaras don't, and actually the ebony didn't as well. So they don't have descriptions. So you can have some information of what it's supposed to do, but
right.
for me, it always comes down to the intention.
Yeah.
It could be you can have this certain bowl in a certain frequency or a certain size, but and if that intention is that for that to play that to bring you peace and calm, yeah.
Hmm.
Whether you play another bowl, it would be the same, but I feel it would be the same if you like even if you're holding a rock of the earth.
Hmm.
If your intention, it's just it really just come down to intention
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
strong. So even though it's like really beautiful to have these amazing bowls, and they really are amazing bowls, I'm so blessed that they've kind of found me because they've like represented different parts of the last few years on my journey,
Yeah.
and it's always what's resonated. So I always have an idea of what I want. And when I hear one, that one will make me cry, and I know it's that. And I'm like, oh, but I wanted a grounding bowl. That always happens to me. Like my first one, it's like, oh, I don't want a grounding bowl, or I want a bowl with a certain description. That's how it like would start out. My mind would come in and to say how it should be, and
Yeah.
then letting go of actually it doesn't. I've got like 3 bowls that have um they're the same frequency, so it's your
Mm.
adrenals. And the first one was Harnick's bowl, which is the emerald bowl, and
Mm.
then had the moldavite bowl. And when I heard it, I feel like I really need to, so I saw them in person, it's like I'm really drawn to it. So
Yeah.
not necessarily hearing it, I'm just drawn to it, that one.
Yeah.
And and then you hear it's like yes, and then I'm like, but that sounds exactly the same, very
Mm.
similar to the one I've already got. But I'm like, I'm told like trust that. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay, I'm going to trust this. And then it will be the last one is a selenite, and again, it's a selenite bowl, and it's the adrenals again, and it is the same frequency. And I'm like, really, 3 bowls? But I had a dream of that. I actually had a dream of that bowl. And then I asked the person who kind of where they come from, America to England, and she said we don't normally get them, but we have one. So it's like wands. I love it. It's like I'm like, oh, I had a dream of it. So it's like okay, it feels right. It really feels right. And then I'm like, okay, where am I going to get the money for this one? Because they're not cheap. And the next day, the money came in, and I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that. Like came at unexpected source, and that was that. And I'm like, so it's there. And
I
then I
love
realized
crystal bowls because they. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
it's like they're a trinity. There's three of them. So I'll play them. I've got to stretch my leg. um, I play them like one on either side, depending who wants to be at the top of the triangle.
Mhm.
And yeah, they're really interesting, and I don't really understand them, or like in terms of giving you a detail on it, because it's like I'm at the stage of where I still think the world is flat in my mind. So
Mm.
trying to like describe, they're multidimensional. It's like they're doing something, I know what they're doing, I know how I need to play them because I'm being shown, and that's what I will do. And that's
Mhm.
it's like, and that's kind of like a simple,
Yeah.
I don't need to give all the mind stuff, because people go into their mind, and that's like, this is what we're kind of trying to undo.
Right. It's interesting because sound is such a powerful healer. Um, I know in the first episode, I'm trying to remember what we talked about specifically, but I was talking to my friend who's a musician and a singer from she's from Peru, and we talked about sound and just how um, supportive sound is to healing. And when you think of it in terms of like we are constantly vibrating at the atomic level, and how many sounds are around us. Like right now, I don't know if you can hear it, but there's a phone in the house ringing. The heater's on, so there's sound there. Um, there was a rumbling outside while you were speaking that
Mhm.
I kind of like for a second I was like, what is that? Because I actually don't know what that is. There's always sound happening, but we don't notice it. There's sound that's incredibly disruptive. Where I'm living, there's Air Force Base that's like 40 miles away. So constantly there are military planes, helicopters flying overhead. I'm incredibly sensitive to it, so I notice it. When I ask anyone else if they notice it, no one else notices it because they're used to it or they've like tuned it out. But there's a lot of noise that's always around us that we just don't realize. And there's a lot of noise that's very disruptive to the atoms that exist within us, right? And so what I think is so beautiful about ceremonies where sound is the tool of healing. For example, the full moon and the new moon crystal sound healing ceremonies that you hold, the circles, that there's what you were speaking about, the intention. So there's the intention that you set going in. There's the intention for everyone who's participating in the ceremony going in. There's the intention from source of why everyone's felt called to join, right? And then you have these tools, these crystal bowls that have their own energy frequencies because they are their own beings, as they have their own atoms and they have their own life force existing within them. There's their own chi and all of that that exists within them. And the interesting bit about it is that they're alchemically made. So even if you had like, um, I wager to say, if you have two of the same exact bowls, let's say if you had two emerald bowls from um, Crystal Tones, right? That's the name of the
Yeah,
company that makes it.
yeah.
I bet you they'd still be different because
Oh,
they're still two different living beings, even though it's the same stone and like formula that created, the metals and all that all put together. And it's interesting because earlier today I was on Facebook real quick because I was posting the episode for this week, and I saw on a group that I'm a part of, this spiritual awakening group, and someone had posted a question about crystals, like wanting to work with crystals and wanting to know like what's the right crystal to start with. And people have like their own opinions of like, oh, start with this, start with that. And something that I learned from um, this amazing woman that was friends with Harnick and I, and she owns a crystal shop in the Haight in San Francisco, Newt. Um, she always taught, or at least the way that I understand to relate to crystals because of her, is to see what calls to you. But
mm,
like I would start this practice when I lived in San Francisco, and never would go visit her in her shop, which was actually a temple looking like a shop. I would go and like introduce myself and say hi, all the crystal beings. I would have my hand out and just say like, "Hi, how you doing? Like, hope you're having a great day." Not out loud, obviously, but that was basically like the energy that I was holding within me as I would walk around the space. I usually never had the intention of leaving with crystals. That I usually was coming to visit just to say hi, and I was in grad school and working with clients, so like that was a place that was like a safe haven for me. Um, and something that I always found is that there are certain um like crystals that my heart would just like I'm gonna have this amethyst downstairs that's massive. I would have never bought that ever in my life. But I remember walking around doing my little greeting thing. My hand literally stuck to it, and it wouldn't move. Like I actually was like, I like got freaked out for a second. I was like, what is happening here? And I realized I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm gonna come back to this later. Like I'm noticing it and coming back to it. But there's something about that the way that those crystal beings, they like call out to you. Um and there's people who like are very egoic in the way that Harnick and I used to always joke around about people being like Schmeagol, like my precious. And so like like don't want to be like that because people get very possessive over crystals as if like, it's like their possession.
But they
um
leave, don't they? They have a
yeah, they
time when
do.
like they're done. Like,
Yeah,
okay, that's quite interesting because it can
yeah.
be like that, but it's like
Oh yeah.
time to go on to the next person.
I feel very much like any crystals that I have, which I do have quite a few. I feel like I'm a foster mom and like they're with me for now, but once they're done with me, I'll either notice that and gift them to somebody or they'll leave.
Mhm.
and, and it's a practice of
Ooh, yeah,
what is it
absolutely.
called? Not attachment.
Yeah, I just got a
But
massive shiver.
but this is something about that I feel is so um precious about crystal singing bowls is that those same principles apply. Like the last circle that that you did, I remember I was laying down and I was having difficulty shutting off my mind. My mind was like very active that day, like incredibly active, and I was getting really annoyed with it being so active because I find sitting in those types of healing circles are so restorative for me that like, but I have to be able to like my mind has to shut off to allow for my I don't know, it almost feels like my higher mind to drop into that state theta state. um, and and I noticed at one point I almost was picking up a language that the bowls were creating, and I was like, my logical mind was like getting activated again, trying to like make sense of it, and so then I couldn't hear it anymore. But it was like a few moments of like I almost can hear a language being spoken through the harmonization of the bowls that you were playing. And it was like, oh wow, it was like another layer of discovery that I had never noticed before. And I've been around crystal singing bowls uh for many years now, for at least 6 years. I can say that I have sat in numerous different ceremonies with crystal singing bowls, with Tibetan singing bowls, with like one, with many.
Yeah,
And it's different every single time. But there's something about that that feels um in many ways they feel like an energy reboot or something like that. Like I don't even know, like what you were saying of like you're still just learning of what is actually happening when you play them.
yeah.
I feel it's every time there's something else that um reveals itself
It's
around
like
around.
there is so much. I mean, we are. I mean, there's so many studies done with crystals to show how
Yeah,
they affect your electromagnetic field.
yeah,
It's quite amazing how they do that. But when we combine it with sound, I
yeah,
think what I find is I'm not into like I just want to know how I feel afterwards. And
yeah,
it's kind of interesting to talk about, what images you might have got or where you might have felt it, but
yeah,
ultimately it's gone. It's like that part of the river goes. It's like it's
yeah,
so does it what can happen? I don't actually. as you know, with my sessions, you come into my sessions and it's like you're walking into a room and it's quiet. So I don't
Yeah.
really kind of like, that's how I do it when it's live. I like it, the lights are really low, people come in. I don't chit chat, you know, I just like
Yeah.
make sure everyone's comfortable. Because when we talk about what happens afterwards, it can really, it can really
Hmm.
color your experience
Yeah.
and you have a certain view of how it should go.
Right.
You know, when you hear someone else, oh, I saw angels, or
Yeah.
so, oh my, this chakra was just going crazy, and then someone's like, why isn't my chakra going?
Yeah.
Why didn't I see an angel? You know, so you just,
Yeah.
it's like, guys, don't say nothing. You know, it's like, because then it's a really pure experience,
Yeah.
and it's constantly like they do call to you, and you're like, what is that? It's like, how do I? Since I mean, I've been to crystals for so many years, and I'm drawn to them, and I've stopped trying to figure out why I'm drawn to them. Like when I go into a crystal shop, and I don't know because I really, um, I guess I use a crystal artisan now. I
Yeah.
really kind of like work with like if I was Bond, I'd have like Q, like they Francis and Maddie. It is. It's like that. It's like
Yeah,
Francis and Maddie.
they created this beautiful piece that I'm wearing.
Yeah, they're amazing, and they
Yeah,
are basically like,
they're
here's
cute.
my Q. I go
Excellent.
to Q, like, and they're like, oh, there's a new gadget, and you do, and it is like quite amazing. But then when the wands, and it's I've got different crowns, but when the wands come as well, they're like you don't own them, like they've come to foster you. You know, it's like so beautiful, and
Yeah.
and I don't know why I'm drawn to them, but I know that's really important. You
Mm,
know, and the weaving is going on in the it's like this beautiful weaving that's happening in the background. It's in the
mhm.
background, and I don't need, and what I really feel is that I don't need to know, because it's not just standing there and talking about this crystal, is actually the effect it's having on me, and then how that actually comes through with the work that I do.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like me talking, sitting here and talking about the type of apple I eat,
Yeah.
and how that has an effect on how you feel because of how I'm talking to you. It's like,
Yeah.
what? It's like,
Yeah.
that's how I kind of feel. Like it's like really, it might be relevant. It feels irrelevant, but it's actually, it's kind of taking you off the path of what we're
Yeah.
actually trying to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, the amazing thing with the bowls, like, I don't need to play them. You can sit and hold them, and you
Mm.
feel like
Oh
it's
yeah.
like
They're,
holding the crystals. And
yeah.
I've got two morphs, and the morphs are quite rare. And what it is when they were, because you never know what note they're going to be when they come out, so they come out as whatever note they come out when they, because they're fired up to, I think it's about 4,000 degrees. I don't know if that's right, it's 1,000 or 4,000 if that's possible. With, so it's quartz with the actual gem, and then they're formed. So it's like you don't know what note or frequency they're going to be. So they're
Mhm.
born. They really are like, you don't
That's
know.
cool.
And the morphs that I have, two of them, so they were formed, but then they didn't fully form. When they were taken out, they would have broken. There would have been a breakage in it.
What is it called?
The morph, morph, a morph bowl. Yeah. So you would,
Cool.
that would, so when they were to be taken out, they would have either had a crack in it or a hole, or
Ah,
they didn't take completely. So they would have fired it up again. So it's gone through its own healing process. The
oh,
bowl
interesting.
itself is a consciousness that has gone through its own healing process.
Right.
They're amazing bowls. They really, I mean, they're all amazing. Sorry, guys. No favorites. Yeah, but they're like, there's something about them morph, and I think they always calls to me that it's something so beautiful when, especially like with healers, you've gone through your own healing
Right.
process,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky to have two of them. I'm really,
It's interesting. It makes me think of like it makes me think of like self-healing crystals and how they teach you like that you can be um like even crystals have to go through a healing process.
mm,
You know, those self-healers.
I don't know actually. I don't know the. Well, I know about the morphs, and I know. I mean, I've got so many crystals now.
I'm trying to think of like if I
I
have
think
any
it's
that are
everyone.
easy to.
People are probably like
There are
screaming.
some there are crystals that have like you could see that they've gone through something and then they've healed themselves.
Mm.
Um, you talk to like people who really are into crystals, like more so, they feel like crystal scientists to me.
Yeah.
They can talk a whole lot more about self-healing crystals, but they're really fascinating. I've seen them. I know I have some, I just don't know where they are, but they're self-healers. It's like you could see like the scab, and you can
Yeah.
see how the scab has healed over.
Oh, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I feel like the one of the many lessons they teach is that our ability to both experience suffering and heal ourselves, how
Yeah.
we are like our best healer, and
Yeah.
yeah, and the possibilities of that.
Yeah, because that's what it's. I find like with the sessions, with any session, actually anything that you go to, you're always directed back to yourself, and something
Absolutely.
comes up that you know. So it's like it
Yeah,
is always this directing you back to your own self healing ability.
yeah,
Something will shift, something will connect, and you'll see something in a different way,
yeah,
or it ripples through. That's the thing with crystals as well. It's not an immediate, like I've taken a pill and I'm well.
yeah,
It's like it ripples through, and it's just like really supportive, and it
yeah,
brings up stuff, and one of the things is always asking for that gentle integration, isn't it?
mhm,
That's really like, yeah,
yeah,
because it's you're unpacking a lot, and we are multidimensional. There's so many different levels to this,
yeah,
and yeah, I think for me, I don't know, I find more and more I just want it to be simpler and simpler, because I feel like my brain works in a very different way
mhm,
now to how it used to.
mhm,
Like before I was, you know, yeah, the 9 to 5.
mhm,
It was very much, I worked in the property industry. So, and I've got a first class degree in town planning. And so my brain was working in a very, very different way. But I had all of this already, but I
mhm,
just kind of pushed it all down.
mhm,
So,
mhm,
like now I've gone into very much more the intuitive side of myself.
mhm.
And it just feels like simpler. It's like rather than trying to figure out um, reading a blurb or reading information, it's am I drawn to this or not?
Yeah,
Without like
yeah,
without reading or going into the mind. And it's the same with crystals actually. When I go into a crystal shop, I'd purposely like close my eyes, because it's natural like for us to go for pretty things.
yeah.
Sometimes there's something so like,
You
oh,
sniggle it.
yeah, and like, yeah. So I'd close my eyes, and like I would do this, and I got to the point where I didn't care, and they knew what I was like in the shop. So I'd close my eyes and I'd turn around, not fast, and then I just see where I'm drawn to, just to really like feel where are you drawn to.
Yeah,
And I just find that's a really interesting, yeah, it's just a really interesting way, and it confirms actually what you're drawn to, and then I can read about it afterwards and like, yes, that's exactly why I needed that.
yeah. It's interesting because it's accessing that like heart mind and like the gut mind,
Mm.
which it's when you're in the like um when you're existing in the programming that is very, I'll say mainstream for now because it feels like the best way to describe that. That activates the logical mind. And when I feel like a thing that people experience, one of many things that people experience when they're in the awakening process, is the turning on of the gut mind and the heart mind, which operate in completely different ways. And so as you're describing that, I'm like, yeah, of course, it's a completely because you're not allowing your logical mind to be the person driving the road, the not the road, person driving the car.
Hmm.
If anything, that the logical mind's in the back seat because it's not like there's anything wrong with the logical mind, but
It's
it's
the
like the
mental too.
integration of all three minds. Like,
Yeah,
can you exist while allowing there to be balance and integration between them all? And I
yeah,
think the challenge is when you were talking before. Um, you were talking about the experience that you were having when you were going through the divorce. You're also going simultaneously through your awakening process, and the pendulum swinging of like everything's awesome, everything sucks, like you know. I think that's a common thing that people experience when they have peak um, awakening experiences, and then they go back into their everyday life and they're like, what is this? And there's something like hard to hold both of those experiences at the same time. And so that's why it's so beneficial to have um, integration and to have like consciousness of integration. I mean, it's one of the many reasons why I offer integration as a part of like the practice of holding space, because I've had experiences of not having a very smooth integration after peak experiences and floundering for like, I mean, one experience is coming to mind, like I floundered for like a week before I was like, oh wait, I know how to do this. I
Yeah.
know, I actually understand what's happening to me and I know what I need. And
Mm.
sometimes people just need that support. And also going back to how we are our best healer, like, and any, I mean, I know you and I have both talked about this, of like whenever we're holding space for people, I feel very clear, like I'm not going in and rescuing people. That's not my role. My role is to hold space. If I'm working with a person, whether it's through emotion code or through coaching and mentoring, if that person is not willing to heal, then I'm just like wasting my time. Because really what's happening is there's an agreement that comes into place when you're going to those healing spaces,
Hmm.
and I'm merely holding space for the intelligence um, of the person's own healing ability to be able to like get online, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
also mindful of time. I know we're over an hour,
Oh,
um,
okay.
so I want to bring awareness to that as well. Um, but yeah, it's just there's so you know I feel like we can continue talking and talking about all of these different things: awakening, integration, sound healing, crystals.
Mm.
Uh, it's funny because my mind just remembered what the tea bag you were holding, how intuition and intelligence are
Yeah.
two friends. Like, oh,
Going
interesting. That kind
backwards there, but there
They
we
kind
go.
of just came back together, because I
Yeah.
think it's true. That's the integration of the three different minds, is intelligence and intuition, allowing them to coexist instead of there being like a versus.
Yeah. It's like the coexisting, but also first of all just being really aware of what one of them is, so you can actually realize these three are
Yeah,
playing. You're like, you don't even know, and you've got to then pull them apart, and then not
yeah,
literally, but it's that kind of understanding, like, this is how this feels, this is how
yeah,
this operates,
yeah,
this is what you're like, and then you're like, oh,
yeah,
it's picking it apart, and that's really important.
yeah,
Like with intuition, well, sorry, gut feeling for me, like for me, I always, my reference point is, am I being pushed or pulled? Is it a
yeah.
push or a pull? Like, there's not words for
I
me.
like that. Yeah,
Is it a push or a pull? So it's like, then I'll know, okay,
yeah,
that's fine. Like and that's actually for me been more important, like just to be more in my body, and your physical body and your gut,
yeah,
really, really important. So
yeah.
that's yeah, I like that. I always talk to that with my to my children,
Mm.
and it's that, what is put, is it a push or a pull?
Yeah. It's discernment. It's learning discernment.
Yeah.
Oh, like there's
I
a
think
very felt sense of like being able to experience discernment. Like discernment for me is like yes or no. Is this a yes or a no? There's like a particular way that my body feels when it's a yes. And there's a particular way that my body feels which when it's a no. Pushing and pulling is also another way of being able to like, oh
yeah,
yeah, sometimes it feels like a push or a pull. I get yeah. That's what
yeah,
the yes and that's what the no feels like for me.
and
And
that's
learning what that is for everyone too.
yeah, exactly. It's personal.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own little school jacket, rocking
Yeah.
it their own way,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it. It's like, that's the thing, is when there's something you can feel like, why am I not getting? You can get lost in a loop.
Of
Why
course.
am I not getting it this way? It's like,
Right.
'cause you're not supposed to,
Yeah.
because sometimes you're not supposed to get it, because that's
Yeah.
not how you're designed.
Yeah.
You're not designed that way.
Yeah.
That took a long time for me to figure out how I'm designed.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Well, as we bring this conversation to a close, I would love if you could speak a bit about what you are currently creating in your life right now.
Okay, so you know me, I've always got loads of different ideas.
You're
They come to me, they're like,
like the
they're like,
idea machine.
they keep coming. I'm like, give it to someone else. I'm busy. Please. It's like so much. But what I'm like, just in terms of the sound, I'm currently putting together, well, completing a soundtrack called Smoky Quartz Rain,
Mm,
and it's very, very cleansing. It was the sound of the smoky quartz. It's a practitioner bowl, so it's the sound of that, and it was done on the 31st of October last year, which was a super moon,
mm,
and it was in Taurus, yeah, full Taurus moon,
mm.
really powerful, really cleansing, and it was raining really hard here, so I recorded the sound of that and I've combined the two, and I've just had some amazing feedback with
Yeah,
that.
I
You know,
love
I
that track.
listen to it now in the morning, now the softening and
Yeah,
releasing and doing a lot, and I found that really yeah, really, really beautiful, really supportive. So that's one of the things I'm working on, and as you know, I'm creating an app which is coming along in its own time because I'm having to do it in a gentle, kind way. There's like this is a massive forget the app. This is a massive learning experience for me. Like
yeah,
how to do my own inner work. That is like the main thing. It's like, oh yeah, it's like I'm being told, yeah, the app's just like the side effect of
yeah,
like what your main work is. Like
yeah.
okay. So yeah, so that will come to fruition maybe in a year, we'll see. And we're doing the collaboration on the guidebook
Mm,
and my artwork. You know, it comes through when it comes through. It's acrylic, like paint pouring, but I use different techniques,
mm,
and it's just so much fun.
mm.
And I just love how they just show me what to do. Like, you know, you don't know, I'm just grabbing whatever colors
Yeah,
and it comes, and it's just like when I know which bowl to play, it's like I'm told about the colors and the techniques, and it's just fun, and it's just a really nice time in my life.
yeah,
A really nice time in my life where I feel safe and I feel I can express myself, and yeah, I feel really content and really blessed, yeah, to know so many amazing people like you. I've got a great team.
yeah.
I feel like I don't know if you had the A team. Did you have the A?
I was just thinking that.
Did
I
you
was
have
about
the A team? I
to
don't know if we had it here in England, but it's like I've got the A team. You know, it's like I've got like everyone's got different things that they can do. It's like it feels really good, you know,
yeah,
to have a support network that isn't necessarily people that you see, but I've got that network, and that
yeah.
feels really great. Yeah, so you're on my team.
I love the energy. You're also doing the crystal bowls
Yeah,
ceremony.
thank you for that.
Like you're also creating one more thing, just to put it out there.
Yeah, I'm doing every new and full moon. It's a alchemical sound session which I've called Centered Soul transmissions, and yeah, you receive the sound. It's via Zoom. Um,
Mm,
it's in England. It's 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. So work it backwards or forwards for wherever you are in the world, and you just receive that sound. You come in with your own intention. Um, I hold the space, and it's just a really it's just a really I just find it a really peaceful and beautiful space to really work on just letting go
yeah,
and just receiving, but you come with your own intentions,
yeah,
but then you just let go and just receive, and that's a really beautiful offering that I feel is yeah, it's I've just find it really supportive
yeah,
for myself, for other people,
yeah,
and it's new and full moon, so you kind of it's by donation, and you can book on for both or one, and the details are on my website and Instagram, which is Centered Soul. Oh yeah, English spelling, Centered Soul.
well, I'll include it on the blurb
Yeah,
for both the YouTube and the and when this is on IGTV on the like written blurb that is connected with the video. I'll have both your Instagram account and your website there.
yeah.
I
Thank
also
you.
want to say you record these um, circles, so if a person can't physically be there, let's say if like the time difference is too much, they can still sign up and receive the recording, correct?
Yeah, so you get a recording and you just tailor it into your own day.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it's beautiful to join in with other people at the same time, but there are time differences, or you just listen to it that evening in bed. I
Yeah.
just love that. I love the fact that one of the things, like, if I could ever change with sound sessions, is that I could just stay asleep.
Yeah.
You know, you have to get up.
That's nice.
You know, it's just like, oh, and then lockdown came and it's like, yes.
It's so disorienting, actually. The last session we had, I remember I had some time before I had something else, and I woke myself up. Um, I went so deep, and then like I like breathed funny, and I like almost like snorted, and that woke me up. And I remember just laughing. I'm like, oh, this is so funny because there's something like I've had sound healing sessions in person with people, like a crowded, like I have a memory of like this one particular experience. It was like 50 of us in this really small room up in near Mount Shasta in like the heat of the summer. And the woman who does crystal tones, the woman who makes them, was doing, she had like so many bowls around her. Like I couldn't even tell you how many, and was playing them this really, really deep like session that we went in, and how disorienting it is to like you just want to keep going. Like I actually went into like had a very visual experience, and just wanted to continue going with that vision and having the awareness of like, and I'm in a room with like all of these people and need to be mindful of that. And there's something so freeing to like being able to be in your own space and allow yourself to continue to go, because I think it is so, again, so important, um, for yourself to access those different brain waves that sound healing can actually really help you do. It's one of the many different ways that you can help um, go into those different brainwave states that are incredibly healing for us. Um,
Right. Really.
so
Yeah. It's like, it's just nourishment. There's so much out there that gives you nourishment. I mean,
yeah,
I think that's the main thing. Just nourish yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kamala. I appreciate you and love you so very dearly. And I'm so happy that we were able to connect today and record this video. And to everyone who is still tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Cosmic Earth Conversations. I hope it was supportive for you and sending so much love for your journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Cosmic Earth Conversations. I hope it was supportive for you, and please take a moment to like and subscribe to this video and to this channel so you can be informed of the next time an episode drops. Many blessings to you on your journey.